We're facing hyperinflation in the United States of America. And so what you need to know is you need to know what this is going to look like to the man on the street. And just exactly what you're going to see and what's going to happen. I'm going to try to give you my idea of what it's going to look like. And I think, personally, I think that I'm probably got the right idea what it's going to come to look like. But there's other people who think it's going to be worse. A lot of them think it's going to be worse than what I think. And there's a few of them that think it's not going to be as bad as what I think it's going to be. But most of them think it's going to be worse than what I think it's going to be. I think that when this whole thing gets started is when the oil price is going to start to go up again. And believe me, the oil price is going to go up. Except for a major investment in oil in the oil patch, which is in West Texas. It's called the Permian Oil Basin. This is the oil basin that's holding up the price of oil from going up. The OPEC, the oil-producing countries, are in a war against West Texas crude. They're pumping a tremendous amount of oil out of West Texas, and it was starting to, the well count in West Texas was starting to decline. But what happened was they invested a whole bunch of new money and they put a whole bunch of new well heads in West Texas, and they increased the well count again. And, of course, that increased the amount of oil that's coming out of West Texas. And there was a surplus again. It was like a second wind, almost like a runner when he runs a race and he's starting to tire out. You see him starting to tire and starting to drop back, and all of a sudden he comes into his second wind. And he runs like the wind, and he catches up and he gets back in the lead again. And that's what happened to West Texas. They started to produce a lot of oil again. It dragged the price back down again on oil. And, of course, this is going to come to an end. It can't go on forever because the cheap oil in West Texas, they're burning through it really fast. And all that's going to be left in the end is the more expensive oil in West Texas. So we're not really going to concern ourselves with the real expensive oil in West Texas that's in the ground. The reason why is because the American dollar will already be in a hyperinflation by the time they're able to get that oil out at those higher prices. Will already have driven the dollar into a hyperinflation. Once the dollar gets into a hyperinflation, it's a self-perpetuating cycle because it's a self-feeding cycle. It's almost like the flywheel on an engine. Once that flywheel gets going, it takes a lot of energy to slow it down. And that's the way with hyperinflation. Once it actually gets started, it's a self-perpetuating or self-feeding cycle. The same with deflation. Deflation is a self-perpetuating or self-feeding cycle, and they both move in the opposite direction from each other. Deflation and hyperinflation move in the opposite directions. It's a deflationary period that quite often triggers a hyperinflationary period, and hyperinflation is caused when people lose confidence in the buying power of the currency, and they start to decide to spend it as fast as they can. Then the velocity of money goes up. What the velocity of money is basically like this. How quick is the money moving through the population? Like if you were to take a dollar bill and put a mark on it, for instance. Say you were to put a question mark on your dollar bill and you spent it in town. Say you got a taxi cab ride. You give the taxi cab driver your dollar bill with the question mark on it. That dollar bill might change hands how many times in a day? Say it changed hands twice in a day. That would be your velocity of that dollar bill, how fast that dollar bill is moving. If it changed hands 10 times in a day and then it came back to you and you seen the question mark on it, then that would have a much greater velocity than if it only exchanged hands twice in a day. And so as you get into a depression or a recession, the velocity of money generally tends to slow down. So right now, the velocity of money is so slow right now, it's unbelievable. It's dropped off a cliff. It's so slow, the velocity of money. And the Fed's quantitative easing is part of the reason why the velocity of money is so slow. Now, when people lose confidence in the purchasing power of their currency, the velocity of money is going to shoot to the moon. Velocity of money is something that increases your economic activity as well. So what's going to happen is when the price of oil starts to go up, the velocity of money is going to start to increase. It's going to be one of the signs of the oncoming hyperinflation. And also, we're going to see an increase in economic activity. A real honest-to-goodness, not a fake recovery, but a real honest-to-goodness recovery. And it's going to actually feel good because people are going to be starting to spend money again. Retail will start to pick up again. The economy will start to actually pick up again for the first time in ages. And everybody will think, hey, this is great, you know. But this is the first stages of the hyperinflation. So this whole conversation I'm having right now is to try to help you understand what it's going to look like when the hyperinflation starts to come. And what it's going to look like to the man on the street. And this is what I'm trying to explain. How much buying power you're going to have, what's going to happen to the actual dollar itself, and how far will this go before they finally actually fix it and straighten the situation out and we see some sort of a normalcy. Now, a lot of people on there, they tend to think that this situation is going to be extremely bad, that it's going to lead into a crisis where everything is going to shut down, where the grocery stores are going to go empty, where there's going to be no water to drink, and there's going to be no police to protect you, and there's going to be roaming gangs, and there's going to be fires burning in the middle of the street, and the power's going to go out, and everybody's going to be dying because they got no medication. And no, I don't think it's going to do that. I don't think it's going to go that far. I think the government's going to react to it at a certain point. I think it is going to get pretty bad, though. And I'll tell you how I think it's going to get bad. I think an awful lot of people are going to be without work. Possibly as many people as was without work during the Great Depression. It's going to be very hard to find a job. Your wages during this period in time of hyperinflation, your wages are not going to go up that much. They're going to go up some, but they're not going to go up, certainly not going to go up enough to keep up with inflation. Inflation's going to be roaring hot, and the further you go into this scenario, the longer this lasts, the faster the inflation is going to get, the faster it's going to get. When it first starts, it's going to be a moderate inflation. I'll tell you what I mean by that. I mean, you're going to go to the store and say you buy a steak and it costs $10. Well, after a month, they're going to put the steak up to like $12 in the first month of the hyperinflation. So it's not going to be that big of an increase. In a period of a month, you're probably going to notice it go from 10 to 12, and you'll be okay with that, you know, because you might have got a wage increase of 10% or something at work, you know, and so it's going to be no real big deal. You'll pay the $12 for the steak, you know, and the economy will be picking up. People will be spending money, and stores, they'll be spending money so fast that it'll be hard to keep merchandise in the stores, and there'll be a lot of people starting to find work. Now, that kind of contradicts what I just said when I said there's going to be a lot of jobs missing, and I'm going to get to that. But I'm talking about the start of the hyperinflation, what you're going to see. See? It's going to be later in the hyperinflation you're going to see people losing their jobs. But at the very start, you're going to see the economy picking up steam and a real honest-to-gosh recovery. But believe me, this recovery is not going to last long. And what's going to come later, you're not going to like. So at first, you're going to see some moderate inflation, like your steak's going to go up to $12, okay, in like the first month. Now, the second month, you know, you're going to think the steak can't go up any higher than $12, but you're going to all of a sudden notice at the end of the second month the steak now is $18. And people are going to start to feel the pinch. They're going to start to complain because everything across the board is going to be going up the same, almost double the second month. It's going to really be a chunk in the price. And so an awful lot of people who have jobs, what they're going to find is now their wage didn't keep up with this next price increase that happened in the next month. So now their buying power for their work, where they work, they can only buy, they get about 1/3 less food and everything that they can purchase. And the people are going to start to be upset. But they're not going to say much just yet, because prices will have nearly doubled in 2 months. And they won't really say too much just yet because they can still afford to go out and buy a steak and whatnot. And a lot of people will be getting new jobs, and there'll be things will be starting to fly off store shelves and stuff. And people will think, hey, this is a really good recovery, and there'll be a lot of talk about the recovery. And so people will get along, and they'll let the inflation go. But the following month, now that same steak was $18. Remember that month? The following month it's going to go all the way up to $36 the following month. And that is double in 1 month. It's going to double in price. And now all of a sudden everybody's going to be feeling a pinch because everything's doubled in price in that month. But your wages have only went up maybe 5%, maybe not even that. So all of a sudden you're finding that now you not only can't put any money away in the bank, you're having to take money out of your bank account in order to get you by, because everything costs twice as much in 1 month. And everybody starts to talk about it now. When you go to the grocery stores and stuff, people are saying, do you see how much stuff's went up in the last month? Everybody's starting to talk about it now, suddenly. You know? And it's on everybody's mind. And everybody's worried about it. And it's in all the newspapers. It's starting to hit. The inflation has gone out of hand. And the government is starting to talk about it. Everybody's starting to talk about it. It's the talk of the town. The inflation's gotten out of hand. It's in all the newspapers. And they're challenging the government. What are you going to do about it? And so on. Well, guess what? The government can do a lot about deflation. But there's nothing that they can do about inflation. They can't stop it. Once it gets away like this, they can't stop it. So the following month will come in, and it'll even be getting hotter, the inflation. And people will start panicking then at that point. They'll start thinking in their mind, I better run out and buy this because next month is going to be even higher. And so they'll be taking money out of their bank account to get things that they need to actually go to the stores and stuff and buy things that they need for the next month, anticipating the higher prices. This will increase the velocity of money, and this will increase the effect of the inflation tremendously, because people will be hauling all the money out of their bank accounts and going and buying and starting to hoard things. Stores will put up signs. Only 5 allowed of this, only 4 allowed of that to each customer. Right? This is what you're going to see. And this following month now, this is when it's going to start to really get interesting. In the following month, things are not going to double. They're going to go up like 3 times higher. And all of a sudden, you're not going to be able, your paycheck just ain't going to be cutting it anymore. It's not even going to buy a quarter of what you need anymore. It's going to be, for the man on the street, it's going to be really rough. And all of a sudden, your bank account's just been cut in half in that month. Most people, most of your neighbors and stuff, are going to be running in and trying to haul their money out of the bank. Well, guess what's going to happen next? That's right, bank runs. Because the banks aren't going to be able to keep up, because they don't really have all that money. It's going to be shortages of cash. And the banks are not going to be able to supply the cash. And so what's going to happen is a situation where the whole thing starts to disintegrate very rapidly, because at this point now, when you're getting maybe 300% inflation per month, and the government doesn't have any answer on how to stop it, because the people are panicking now at this point. This is when you start to get toward the next following month after that, you're going to start to get your civil unrest and riots and stuff. Now, the government is going to do something about that. they're going to come out and they're going to quell these riots. They'll use rubber bullets and stuff like that, techniques like that, to quell the riots, and they will. Because I'll tell you, if you get hit with a rubber bullet, you're not going to want to go back and get hit again with one. I'll tell you that. They're not a pleasant thing to be shot with. And they might even use live ammo, the government, if the riots get bad. They're prepared for it, believe me. So now what's happened is the situation has turned violent, and it's starting to cause major disruption in the country after about the 4th or 5th month. And things are only going to get worse from here. What we're going to do is we will start heading into a period of actual chaos, where the banking system starts to shut down and the financial system is having trouble. And very much like Venezuela kind of a situation, right? Where there's food shortages and everything. And it's going to be bad. But now, getting back to when I started this conversation, and I told you, I don't think it's going to be as bad as they think that it's going to cause disruptions where everybody will be getting killed, will be mobs roaming around. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's going to go that way. Because I think the government at that point is going to come out and have to declare, at this point in the hyperinflation, they will have to declare martial law. And what they're going to do is they're going to put in a curfew. They'll keep infrastructure up and running to the best of their ability, and they will. They'll keep the power running, the electricity, and they'll try to keep essential services going, and they will. But there's going to be major disruptions at that particular point in time. But the government, it will come and they will quell these disruptions. They'll bring in force. They'll bring in military. And they'll form a curfew. And they'll have everyone stay home at night. And they will tell you that looters will be shot. And they will mean it. If you're out at night, they are going to shine a spotlight on you. They'll be driving by in Humvees, the military. They'll have loudspeakers on the top of their Humvees, and they'll be driving through every neighborhood saying the curfew is imposed. All looters will be shot. And they will mean it. And you'll have to stay home at night. From probably 9 o'clock at night till like 7 o'clock the next morning. And then they'll probably have a siren go off when the curfew ends. And then you'll be able to get up, put your clothes on, and go into work. There will be law and order. They'll enforce law and order through the curfew and martial law during the situation. And then things are going to get worse. Because at that point, an awful lot of businesses and stuff that are connecting into the banking system are going to close, and they're going to lay off their employees during this period of what they call a crisis. And this is probably the 5th month now we're talking about of the crisis. And this is when it's really going to start to accelerate. You're going to start to see maybe thousands of % decrease in the purchasing power of your dollar. You're going to get to the point where it takes like $20,000 to buy one pack of eggs. And most people at that point, a lot of people are going to quit working entirely. They're just not going to go into work because their paycheck just ain't going to cut it anymore. It ain't going to cut nothing. They're going to be starving millionaires. And your bank account, your savers and everything, at that point in this hyperinflation, your savers and everything aren't even going to go in and take their money out of the bank. Even if they have $100,000 in the bank, it ain't even worth driving in to get it. So basically at that point, the banks are going to be able to reopen again or start to reopen again. But it's going to be useless. The bank runs will be over at that point. But the hyperinflation will pretty much run its course by month 5 or month 6. Then the government's going to have to come out and they're going to have to step in at that point, and they're going to have to end it by bringing out a new dollar or a new form of currency. It might not be called dollar, probably will be called dollar, but might not be called dollar. But it's going to be a new version of the same old thing. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to back it with something. Otherwise, it'll go down just like the last one, because people's confidence will be gone in in fiat currencies. It's going to be a loss of confidence in them. And so nobody's going to buy into the new currency unless they back it with something. So they will probably have to back it with something at that point. But that'll be the end of the crisis. But by that time, by like the 5th month, there's going to be an extensive black market in gold, silver, diamonds, all forms, even copper. Copper and aluminum and anything that they can get to trade with. You know, there's going to be an extensive black market, and you'll be able to buy anything you want in the United States because there'll still be law and order, and they'll be using that as a means of barter and exchange, other than the dollar, because the dollar by that time will be worthless, and they'll have you trade your dollars in. It'll probably be like $10,000 for one new monetary unit. Was like $1 of the new dollars. So then what you'll do is, say you had a bank account with $100,000 in it. Well, you can get 10 of the new dollars. Isn't that wonderful? But the new dollars will have really good buying power, and they'll probably be backed by either gold or silver. And the government then will start releasing these new dollars. And, oh, by the way, you'll be able to buy them with gold and silver. The new dollars. And you'll be able to get a lot of them if you've got gold and silver. Enough to make you rich of the new dollars. And they'll have tremendous buying power, the new dollars. But the old dollars will be worthless. But that's what you're going to have in your bank account, is your old dollars. They're not going to transform the old dollars in your bank account into new dollars. You're going to have to exchange the dollars in your bank account for new dollars, and you're not going to get very many. Unless you get gold and silver, then you can get a lot. And you can get a lot of those new dollars and you can open a new bank account with your new dollars, and if you sell gold and silver, and you'll be able to get a lot of them, and you'll have a lot more money than your neighbors are going to have, even if your neighbors maybe right now are millionaires with the old dollars. But if they don't get out of the old dollars, and say you only buy 10 ounces of silver, you might be richer than them. After the whole thing turns around, you're able to buy a lot more of the new dollars than they are with what they've got. So it's just going to turn everything around. Turn everything's upside down, this whole thing will. And so then the whole thing's going to end almost as fast as it began. They'll have these new dollars, and they'll probably be back with either gold or silver. You'll find that that the United States government will probably use their gold reserves that they have in the ground as a means to backing it up. They've got a lot of gold that they can mine. That they have a lot of gold reserves that are in the ground. They need to be mined, but they can mine them out pretty quick. Enough to back the currency, if need be, especially in a crisis situation. And so this is what we're looking at coming, and it's all going to pass through like a whirlwind. It's going to exchange. Some people are going to become rich, and some people are going to become poor. People that are rich now are going to become poor, and people that are poor will become rich, depending on what side of the trade they're on. It's going to be an incredible time to be alive. It's going to be an exciting time to be alive. I don't believe it's going to disintegrate into absolute chaos. I think that they're going to keep law and order through the whole thing, from one side right to the other, so that you'll be able to keep your job if you want to. There's only going to be a very short period of time, probably around the 5th or 6th month of this thing, where the stores will be really empty and martial law will be declared and all that. But that's only going to last a very short period in time, and you'll probably be able to make it through because if you stay in your house when they tell you to stay in your house, and you don't go running around like Rambo. Because then they'll take care of you if you go running around like Rambo. Because they're a bigger, better, brighter Rambo than you are. They've equipped themselves already with like, I think it's 3 billion rounds of hollow points. The government has a couple years ago. They're ready to go. They've already trained to kill zombies, and if they see you walking in the street in the middle of the night staggering around, they're just going to shoot you. The National Guard will just shoot you. And ask questions later because they've been trained to shoot zombies. And they'll just say, hey, it's another sick zombie. Because there'll be sick people that lose their homes and stuff. They're just going to round them up and take them to the FEMA camp. And they'll take care of them at the FEMA camp. You don't want to go there. You want to keep your home. Stay in your home. Best thing to do when this thing hits is to obey law and order. Obey what you're told to do. The military drives by and tells you to stay home, tells you it's a curfew. Then you do what they tell you to do. You stay home. It's a curfew. And you'll survive through this thing and come out the other side. They're not going to confiscate your gold and silver. They're not going to work that way. Though what's going to happen is the price of gold and silver is going to go so high that they're just going to get it on the other end. Because you're going to end up turning it in because you're hungry. And they'll get it that way. They'll get it without firing a shot. They don't have to go from door to door and by force take the gold and silver. They're not going to work that way. That wouldn't work anyway. There would be a gun behind every blade of grass that they're trying to get the gold and silver back. People are not going to give up Aunt Martha's earrings. Trust me. Even the people who are pacifistic, when you go after Aunt Martha's earrings, they're not going to give them up. They're going to say, over my dead body, you're having my heirloom Aunt Martha's earrings. That was given to me on my wedding night or whatever. Over my dead body, that I'm going to part with those earrings. That's the way it's going to go. And everybody has heirlooms in their house. They might have a silver fork that was given to them by their aunt, their great grandfather or whatever. And they're not going to part with that over their dead body. So they're not going to even try that. They know better. They know too. They would rile the people, and they would get the people so angry if they even tried that they would be looking at a really big problem, much bigger than they have already. They want to pacify the people as best they can through the situation so that they can maintain control and come through to the other side, maintaining their control and maintaining their office. They work hard to get in office. They're a bunch of crooks. They work hard to get in office so that they can steal a lot of money off of the ordinary people. And if they're kicked out of office, they won't be able to steal any more money. So they have a vested interest to try to keep themselves in office so that they can steal more money all the way through their career. They're all a bunch of career criminals, all of them. The bankers are career criminals. It's a criminal cartel, the whole thing. Government, bankers, and lawyers, and they're all linked in together. And so they're all cats, kittens, and they're all a bunch of cowards, the whole bunch of them. And so when this crisis hits, they're going to use their power to try to maintain the control because they know what would happen if they completely lose control. They know what would happen if the world moves into a Mad Max scenario, and they're a bunch of cowards. They don't want to have that to happen. So they're going to maintain control at any cost, and they have the ability to maintain control. They have the military that works for them, and don't you think for one second that they're not going to use the military to maintain control with martial law and so on. In fact, they've already prepared for it. So everything is all set when this situation occurs, and it's actually for the best that they do maintain control, because if this world were to go into a Mad Max type scenario, even the best of the preppers out there probably wouldn't make it. I hate to tell them that because they've been preparing for years. Myself, I've prepared for years. I first started putting canned food away and candles and everything else way back in the year 2000. So I've been at it for a long time. A lot of the preparations I made way back in 2000, a lot of the canned food and stuff now is spoiled and stuff because it's so old. I've been at this so long. So I know all the ins and outs of it, what you can store, what you can't store, what works and what doesn't work, from years and years of experience. From like 17 years of experience at this stuff. You know? And this is the thing. It's this situation, even the best preppers, if the world were to come to the Mad Max type of world, even the best preppers probably wouldn't make it. I know that. You know? I can give you a few prepper hints about things to store away and stuff. You know, and maybe I'll do a show on that, a few things about prepping. Because I do think that's important. But if the world were to go into a Mad Max scenario, probably none of the preppers would probably make it themselves. Because for one thing that they're not thinking about is all these nuclear power plants that they got everywhere. They got them scattered everywhere. Each one of them's a Fukushima. Or worse. And more like each one of them's a Chernobyl. You know? And if we were to go into a Mad Max type of world, who's going to tend them things? And those fuel rods that they got inside them are going to overheat and they're all going to melt down. So even if you're a prepper and you're able to do your best at surviving and you're able to make your own milk and do this and do that and everything, you're going to have to do it in an environment that's got so many radiations in it and do you have a Geiger counter? And if you go out in your yard and the Geiger counter goes crazy, there's so much radiation in your yard that you have to go down into an underground, if you're a prepper, what then? Because you've probably prepared, you've probably got all your stuff up above ground, like maybe you're into farming or whatever, and get sheep and got goats and got all kinds of food supplies and everything. It's all above ground. It all gets irradiated. What then? See, this world could turn so hellish that even the best preppers couldn't survive it because of the way that they've set everything up. You know? You'd have to be in the correct location, too. So, yeah, probably a few preppers could survive a Mad Max type of world if they were just in the right spots, they had just the right kind of stuff, and they had just the right kind of training so that they could get through about 5 or 10 years of the world being in a Mad Max world. Where they're not going to get nothing from it, no help from anybody, no stores, no nothing for 5 to 10 years. That's what the worst case scenario would probably look like, and it'd be awfully hard to survive it. You'd have to be one hell of a good prepper, and not just a few cans of beans put away wouldn't save you from that, and not a bit of water put away wouldn't save you from that. From 5 or 10 years of the world being completely shut down and everybody running around shooting one another. I mean, that's just Mad Max. It'd be very hard to survive. You'd have to be a real rattlesnake to survive it. So let's hope the world doesn't go that way. And I don't think it's going to. I think that we're heading toward, like I say, maybe a martial law type scenario where they maintain control through martial law, which is for the best. So if that comes and you get a martial law type scenario, you need to be obedient. The military will be enforcing martial law, and you need to be obedient to the military and not think that you're going to be a Rambo running around with your little BB gun or whatever it is you got, because they'll just shoot you. Because that's what they're going to do. Once at nighttime they hit the curfew time, bang, they make this curfew sound. Everybody goes home. They don't even want to see you outside your door until the next morning. They're going to want you to stay home. And they're going to be riding through the streets with their SUVs. Not SUVs, but their Humvees. With their spotlights on the back. Looking for anybody that's roaming around. Anybody that's out that's not them. Now they see anybody that's out that's not them, they'll probably either send the patrol dogs to mangle them or shoot them on the spot. One of the two, probably. It's going to be bad. So anyway, thank you for listening. I hope you got a better idea what I think is coming in this hyperinflationary situation that's coming. And how I think that everybody can live through it if they follow certain guidelines and stuff. And I think it's going to be bad, but I don't think that it's going to be something that you can't live through and come out to see the other side, so that you can be healthy and happy on the other side of this thing. Because I think once we get on the other side of this thing, I think things are going to be better than they are now. Seriously, I think things are going to be better than they are now on the other side of this thing. You know? Things are really rough right now. People don't realize how rough things are right now because they haven't seen better times. But if you go back to the 1960s and 1970s, there was better times than we have now. And I think those better times will come back again once we get past this debt crisis that we need to get through. We need to get through it, and we need to stay positive so we can move to the other side of it. But make no mistake, it is coming. And it's coming pretty soon. So thank you for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next article. Bye.